Nimbulavinaka, we welcome our guest for today's Justpeace Talanoa from the Alliances and local community representatives. We welcome Ms. Alanieta Atama, a young woman representative from the Alliance for Future Generation, and Miriama, a member of the Soqosoqo Vakamarama iTaukei and one of Transcend Oceania's trustees. And our moderator for today's Talanoa is the Program Director for Transcend Oceania, Mr. Paulo Baleinakorodawa.
Welcome to episode 7 of Transcend Oceania's Talanoa Bure at COVID-19 on building Justpeace communities in changing environment and climate in Fiji and the Pacific. In a very special way tonight, I'd like to welcome our two guests, Miriama and Alanieta Atama. I also like to welcome all of you viewers who are watching and listening in to this episode. To begin with, the Talanoa in this episode, maybe it will be good for you to introduce yourselves, what institution or organization you represent in this Talanoa, and what are some of the issues that you deal with in your institution or your organization. And maybe we can start with you, Ala.
Okay, thank you. My name is Alanieta Atama, and I'm with the Alliance for Future Generations Fiji. I work mainly around women's rights and empowerment, and Alliance for Future Generation is a network where we focus on the sustainable development goals, and I'll focus on that. We have in our network we have a focal point where we focus on climate change, gender and human rights. We also focus on oceans and health, and I'm under the focal point of gender and human rights. So and we have been working for the past year with a few of our networks with this topic of the violence against women and young girls. So we have been engaging our youths in campaigns and activism in this field, as well as engaging our youths to volunteer into community outreach and to create awareness on this issue of violence against women and girls.
Thank you. Romiri.
Vinaka, Paulo. I am representing the Soqosoqo Vakamarama as well as the Transcend Oceania. And I must take this privilege just to thank you for allowing me to be here. Yes, we are so much involved in this, this violence against women. And of course, as we are, as for the Transcend Oceania, because of the theme of what we believe in, it's just because that is what I believe, that peace can be achieved through just peace. And I think it is very, very important that we need to apply this in all aspects of our lives. And for me, with Soqosoqo Vakamarama, we are very much with it. Thank you, Mr. Paulo.
Thank you. It's very interesting that you, Ala, have talked about the different kind of issues that you work with and deal with within your institution and organization. And it seems like there's a common ground between the two of you in terms of the issues that you deal with. And I hear both of you talking about violence against women and girls. And during this time of COVID-19, there has been a report of a spike in the incidences of violence against women and girls and domestic violence here in Fiji. How significant, how important is violence against, the issue of violence against women and girls in your institution?
I had mentioned that we have the focal point of gender and human rights. And within the gender, we talk about human rights, and with that violence against women and young girls, we believe that that's like a violation of a basic human right, which is a right to life. And when we talk about the domestic violence, when we talk about that violence in general, we recognize that it's putting a person at risk of living on this earth. So, that's a violation of our human rights. So, that's why we, we want our youth to go into the communities and talk about this issue, to talk about this, the issue of violence, because it is happening in our homes. It's the reality of a community, but sometimes it's like a sensitive issue to talk about. So we're just encouraging and empowering our youth to go and talk about these issues and say that it's really happening in our homes.
Thank you, Ala. Romiri, I hear you saying that you also represent Soqosoqo Vakamarama, which I believe is the biggest indigenous association of women in Fiji. How important is the issue of violence against women to the Soqosoqo Vakamarama?
Thank you, Paulo. It's I have sort of overlooked the other organization or institution that I do represent. It is the Methodist Women's Department as well. And for me, I felt we are running parallel in the things that we believe in. We are advocating this issue to the women's, the women in the provinces and plus in the churches. So we have 59 divisions, and within that 59 divisions of the Methodist Church, we have the majority of the women as well. So we are seeing it as it is very, very important for us to be tackling this issue together, because I believe that the membership, it has the composition of the other women of the Methodist Church. And it is quite very important that on that platform, we need to be speaking of the same, the same language that is going on in our society right now. And that is why I believe we have worked, as Allah has said, with the police and plus with the Human Rights Commission. And I must say it wasn't, it was quite just a distant future, the past that we had sort of set with them and we discussed these issues.
Thank you for you both. What I hear is it is important in both of your organizations, institutions, because first, violence against women and girls is a violation of the human rights, the rights of women and girls. But also for you, Romiri, because you're working with the biggest organization for women within the indigenous community.
Exactly.
We will take a break now. You are watching Transcend Oceania's Talanoa Bure COVID-19 on building Justpeace communities in changing environment and climate in Fiji and the Pacific. Join us after this break. Welcome back to the second segment of Transcend Oceania's Talanoa Bure COVID-19. Romiri and Alanieta, you had been talking about how important violence against women is, the issue of violence against women in your organization, and what you do to respond to violence against women and girls. Men and boys are usually known to be the major perpetrators of violence against women and girls. It's very important for us to look at where the violence is coming from, and to that we will always point to men and boys. So why do you think men and boys are violent in the Fijian society?
I believe that this violent, why men and boys are violent in Fiji is because of the way that they're being brought up. we teach our boys, you're a boy, you shouldn't be crying. You're a boy, don't be too emotional. We have to hide it. And so those feelings are suppressed in them, as well as how boys are raised to be, leaders, are raised to be, to have that leadership, a characteristic in their life. So when it's being challenged, it creates this ego within boys and men. So when they grow up and it's being challenged, they turn that emotion into violence. So like they don't want to show that, that they're losing. So they turn that emotion into, they have to do something violent in order to send out the message that they're in charge, that they're supposed to be doing this, that, they shouldn't be challenged. It should be the way that it is, because it's all that they've ever known while growing up. So I think that's one of the main reasons that contribute to men and boys being violent.
Thank you. Romiri, what are your thoughts on the question on why men and boys are violent in the Fijian society?
Well, since I have just emphasized that I'm representing the majority of the institution that is based on our iTaukei tradition. And for me, this is one thing. I think it has, it has been going on for quite some time, and this is a new concept to us, because with us, we believe that men and boys, they were brought up to be leaders, in our society, especially with our Fijian concept. I mean, with the iTaukei. So it is quite hard, and I think even, whatever that we are trying to do, it's going to take a while. Because, and I thank you for Allah for raising that up, because that is where we depend with our young people. That once we change that, that concept of being, too traditionalist and being of our culture of putting man ahead of women, we'll be able to solve a lot of these problems. But it is going to happen, as I know that Allah is really advocating on this. And for us, as the Soqosoqo Vakamarama, as well as for the women's department of the Methodist Church, I think that is the direction that we are taking right now. Yes, for the betterment of Fiji. Yes.
So a common point I hear both of you talk about is boys are being taught to behave in a particular way in order to be considered a man or a boy within the indigenous cultural context. So they learn because they're being taught to be that way. I'm just wondering if there's any other way boys learn to be violent, apart from in the home, as you've talked about before. Do you think there's other ways they learn to be violent?
I think one major thing that influences young boys and men is the movies that they watch. It's social media. They're not watching. I mean, they're watching violent things. And when they watch it, there's no one there to correct them. There's no supervision, especially for young boys. They see it happening on TV, and it's just giving them that message that boys can get away with being violent, that boys should be that way, to be rough, to be strong, but in a negative way, which leads to violence. So we see that some boys, they become bullies at home, in schools, in workplaces, towards women, and treating them disrespectfully
because they are not supervised.
Yes.
Thank you. Romiri?
Well, with me, I tend, not to differ from what Allah is saying, but on another idea of my opinion, it's just because, this going to school, when we start off with our younger people, the students that they go to school, that is where they pick up certain things that, that they deviate from what we teach them at
so there's a different thing taught at home, and then they pick up other things for you outside of the home situation. We'll take a break now, and you are watching Transcend Oceania's Talanoa Bure at COVID-19 on building Justpeace communities in changing environment and climate in Fiji and the Pacific. Join us after this break. Welcome back to this last segment of Transcend Oceania's Talanoa Bure COVID-19. You have been talking about violence against women and girls, where the violence is coming from and the need to address that. So to be able to end the violence, we need to start looking at how do we address the root causes of male violence in the Fijian society. What do you think needs to happen for men to be able to change their behavior and their attitudes and become more respectful, more loving and more caring for women and seeing women as their equals? What do you think needs to happen?
For me, I'm one person that believes everything starts at home. You know, as a young person, I've realized that it is really important to raise our children right. And you know, in order for us to raise respectful men, in order for us to raise a loving and kind men, we need to teach them at a young age to be that man. You know, we should stop this. You know, we should even stop treating girls and boys differently, you know, saying that girls need to go out, belongs in the kitchen, they need to cook, they have to clean. You know, we need to stop gender basing those kind of things. We need to just, you know, raise our children right, raise our sons to be respectful men. We need to raise our daughters to be empowered, to be strong women. And for men, you know, older men that are violent right now and that are watching today, you know, you need to realize that women, we need each other to help a nation grow. We need each other to help a family grow. So you cannot succeed without the other, without your partner. So that is why you need to respect, and you know, just if you want, there's no reason to be violent. You know, violence should not be tolerated in our homes.
Thank you, Ala. Romiri, what do you think? How can we change male violent behavior and attitudes in the Fijian society?
Well, I'm so thankful about that question, Paulo, because I felt very strongly, you know, and I'm so thankful of the Transcend Oceania, because in partnership, because of what you believe in, it would be nice if there is a lot of awareness. And you need to be crossing borders. You know, when I say this, I mean that you need to look into the, you know, the whole government structure, you know, the iTaukei, and all these things. And I thank you for this. And I think this is the way forward for Fiji. If it is that we have to eliminate some of the things that causes this domestic violence and other climate and the environment, I think we need to, you know, to blend it together, weave them in. And for me, I think that is the way forward for us. And for me, I'm so thankful. I'm representing Transcend Oceania as well. And that is the way forward for us. It has to be done in just peace.
Thank you. We're coming towards the end of this episode. And if there was one last thing that you want to say to all the men and boys who are watching and listening in to this Talanoa, what is that last thing you want to tell them?
Yeah, I just want to encourage young men and boys and, you know, all men out there that you have to realize that women are just not only other human beings, but we are mothers, we are sisters, we are daughters. And, you know, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want your daughter to go through a violent life. So, you know, you need to treat women respectfully. If violence can always be dealt with. but they should not. We should give zero tolerance to violence, and always treat women. Women need to be treated equally, because we are not your subordinate, but we are the other half of humanity.
Yes.
So in order for men to survive, you need to respect and recognize that women have to survive on the same level in order for progress, in order for productivity in this world.
Thank you, Ala. Romiri, what's your message to all the men and boys who are watching and listening in to this Talanoa?
Thank you very much, Paulo. It is that I felt very strongly about this. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to be received well from the other opposite sex. Because I would see that, for me, I would rather that we sit, if we have to have this human dignity, we need to sit with our opposite sex and be able to relate in all aspects of life by just sitting together, reasoning things out. Because if we're going to do this, this will trickle down to our younger generations, even to our children. And I think we need to sit a lot and have this dialogue about the things that we know about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of this episode. Thank you very much, Ala. Thank you very much, Romiri, for being part of this show. And thank you, viewers, for joining us in this episode.
I'm Andy Vasulevu. Join us next week when we meet with our next guest at the Talanoa session.